All right, what is going on out there? I think you can probably hear me. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this countdown. Boom, we started a couple minutes early. Please let me know if you could hear me. I'm Doug, and today we're just going to answer some questions, maybe tell some stories. It looks like we have a handful of people, and we're going to see how it goes. Thank you, everyone, for hopping on. And I do see a couple questions were in already, which is fantastic. And I know the live streams sometimes it just takes a little while for people to hop on here. So I have been experimenting with the little countdown timer where I'll get it started. Maybe some of those notifications can go out, and then I can come in and there's actually a few more people in here, which is helpful versus me just talking to myself for a while. That is okay. That is not a problem you have to solve. Gaz is here. What's happening? Dan was in here for a minute. He thought my thumbnail for the video was pretty funny. So he said he thought it was like Jeff Bezos or something like that picture of Jeff, which I thought was kind of funny. But Jeff looked pretty strong in that picture, so I'll take that as a compliment. We do have a couple questions coming in. We have Gaz, we have Brian, and Gaz is staying up. I saw Alex Cooper, WP Eagle, everyone's friend here. He tested positive. He mentioned it in his community tab. So hopefully he's feeling better, but he said he wasn't doing his live stream today. So maybe, there will be either more or less people, or maybe it won't matter at all. Joe can hear us. Yes. Elcio, I don't know how to say the name, but Elicio Elicio says you can hear me as well. So that's fantastic. I see the first question here, and sometimes this is going to happen. Brian says, how important is Siteground versus Google issue, this Siteground versus Google issue, and should I move to WP Engine? So here's the reality. I have no idea what you're talking about, but if you want to give me some more information, maybe that'll help. I tried to Google. I saw the question come up and realized I didn't know anything about what you were saying. So I tried to see if there was any information, like there's some news item that I don't know of, but I have no clue what issue that might be. So feel free to add some details and context, and maybe I'll answer, or I'll be able to provide some information. Gaz says you have a question, but it'll be a couple posts because it's a long one apparently. Okay, so I'm gonna wait until most of them are posted, and then I'll go through and read them there. And as I'm waiting for more of Gaz's question to come in, I can let you know that I recently got back from a conference. All right, I got back from a conference in Cincinnati, and it was pretty fun. It was called Economy, and it's largely around the personal finance and financial independence community. There are many folks in that community, so there was an interesting overlap. There were actually some people that do affiliate marketing full time, some people that have retired, and just a bunch of other random people too. But pretty awesome conference. I think it was about 400 people, which is I would say a pretty good size. It's enough where it feels like a conference, but it doesn't feel too crowded or anything generally. And if you notice that my voice sounds like I was yelling all weekend, that's how it was. I was yelling all weekend because it's loud in a lot of places that we were at, including, even just the venue that we were in. There was like an after party and different gatherings, and with that many people just talking, and the volume gets louder and louder, and there was DJ and music and stuff playing. So basically I was yelling for a lot of the weekend, sadly. Got to meet some cool people that I hadn't met before, got to see people that I met recently, some at FinCon, and I have really enjoyed the personal finance community and the bloggers there. Very cool, and I think that If you're interested in that sort of stuff, highly recommend, a conference like that. I met, a handful of people that do watch, this YouTube channel and listen to the Doug.Show podcast. I have another podcast called Mile High Five with my friend. There's a link in the show notes for some of these things that I'm mentioning, so you can check them out. But if you are interested in personal finance, I find the topic fascinating, and it turns out once you get through some of the basics, most of it is extremely basic. Like, you can make things more complicated, but you can keep it very simple. And I encourage you to check it out if you do have an interest. The thing is, almost everyone that wants to start a side hustle and earn more money, typically they want freedom with their time. And if you have your finances in order, then you probably will have more freedom with your time. And there's a great overlap, but a lot of times these different communities don't realize it as much. I feel like I think the personal finance community, at least a lot of the people that I bump into, they do understand the SEO and affiliate marketing in that world of side hustles a little bit more than the side hustlers and affiliate marketers are paying attention to the financial independence aspect. So it's kind of interesting to see the overlap. And I came from both worlds, so I recognized it right away. And I know a lot of the personal finance people are like, if you can earn a little bit more money here or there, including online side hustles like affiliate marketing or YouTube channel or podcast or whatever, then you're going to have a leg up in the situation there. All right, I'm going to come back to some questions here. Gaz says, with the Google sandbox being a real thing, in air quotes, or actual quotes here in the written word, and there's a possibility of another shorter article type sandbox, would you encourage newbies to delay a new launch until a lot more content has been done? Typically not. I would say just publish content as soon as possible, so it's published longer. If you have some other specific strategy for a reason to delay like a launch, then I would potentially think about that. There is some value in like batching the work. So for example, I have some content being written and drafted right now, and I haven't published any of it, even though about 10 or 12 of the articles are done. And it's simply a situation where I haven't spent any time publishing them yet, because I'm just going to do several of them all at once. So if it's out of convenience, and I haven't checked on this shorter article type sandbox, so I don't know of any specific examples where I've heard that being a reason to not publish something. So if you have any more information, guys, then let me know. But I think I would just publish as soon as you can. And Brian is saying that Google isn't indexing Siteground sites. Where's your data coming from on that? I have several sites hosted on Siteground, and I haven't had any issues with indexing. So if you could elaborate on that and provide references to that claim, because I haven't seen that to be the case. Joanne, what's happening from Canada? Good to see you on here. Thanks for joining us. All right, a nomad overseas. What's up? And Gaz says, personally, my site that you started as a hobby, which you're hopefully going to turn it into a side hustle. Very cool. And Bonnie, how's it going? I haven't seen you around in a bit. Hope things are going very well. Next, Brian says, do I have any recommendations for a free alternative to Lasso for building product boxes? Yes. Really, those little product boxes are just extremely simple CSS. And here's a cool thing. You don't need any of the fucking tools. You can just look at the CSS And I mean, you have to have a little bit of coding skills, but you could just like take the general CSS that is used from any of the tools that you like, or you can go over to Wirecutter and recreate their CSS, which, my friends, that's exactly what all the tools did, right? They find something they like, and then they're like, oh, we're going to code this ourselves. And I mean, you can see the code, right? The code, the CSS has to be available for the web browsers to consume. So basically, you can just go to any site, and there, there's some things you got to figure out, but the general idea is you don't need those. You can just like snag the CSS that you want. I mean, it's freely available. If you like took someone else's CSS and then started selling it or something like that, you could potentially run into some, you know, maybe like copyright type issues. But the fact is, it's code. It's not super unique. It would really be hard to figure out like who created that. And if you strip away all the sort of garbage, you just end up with the simple CSS there. So if anyone has other thoughts on that, let me know. There's probably some ethical thoughts that you might have to go through if you're like, hey, I'm gonna take this CSS. But again, if you look at what those tools are trying to do, like Lasso or Amalinks Pro or any of the others, where they're literally trying to recreate what some of the other feature boxes look like, they are trying to emulate it exactly. They're using sort of the same colors, and they may change things just slightly, but overall, that is exactly what they're trying to do. Okay. And I am scrolling back up to get back in. Okay. Brian says, oh, I just answered that question. And next, Joanne says, do I use a blog post template for my articles? You need some guidance. Yes, you can go to nichesiteproject.com/Amazon-affiliate, and there is a blog post template there for typically sort of Amazon type reviews. But if you have some other type of content that you need to write, you can sign up for the email list, and there are several content templates that are available in all these sort of freebies that I have there. So you could check that out, and you sign up for the email list. Everyone should sign up for the email list if you're not on there. All right, Jamie, what's going on? Good to see you. And then we have Amin. What's up? I'm doing pretty well. Doing pretty well. Okay, Brian says, Google this title: Siteground's Google crawling and index issues fixed. So one thing, since it's a live stream, I'll not Google it until later, but based on the thing that you're telling me to Google, it sounds like the issues are fixed. Your initial question was, should you try to move over to WP Engine? And I would say only if you have a specific reason. I'm technically an affiliate for WP Engine. I'm one of the worst affiliates in the world because I'll tell you, it's probably more expensive than what you need. There's good reasons to use WP Engine or other sort of premium hosting, but you should be able to clearly state like what that reason is. So if you're thinking, hey, I just want to try WP Engine because some people recommend it, remember that they get paid $200 for each person that signs up. So you have to keep that in mind. Everyone's incentives are not aligned. So I use Siteground for like half my sites. I use another company, MDD Hosting, for another. There's a lot of other hosting companies that I potentially could check and test and see how they hold up and all that. But I have low interest in doing that. And Jamie says, I have multiple sites on Siteground and 0 indexing issues. So Brian, yeah, it sounds like maybe whatever story you found could be a thing, but I don't know. And it seems like maybe it was, at least in our non-scientific study here, 2 out of 2 people said that they haven't had issues with Siteground. So that's 100%. And that's why you got to look out for headlines, because they could make those stats be anything that you want. Okay, Brian says 2 million websites were affected. So, Doug, it was a pretty big thing for sites not to be indexed for 4 days. Okay, fair enough. I don't read the news so much, and you know what? I don't check my analytics very often. So even if my sites were not indexed for 4 days, I would not have known, especially these last 4 days. Okay, Brian, you've enticed me enough to Google it. Siteground crawling issue. Search engine land. I wonder why that didn't come up before. I pretty much Googled that. Man, fucking search engine land with all their ads all over the place. All right, hold on a second. Let's see if I could share my screen here. Let's get over to the other window. Okay. After numerous days, sites hosted on Siteground were blocking Google from indexing. It has been resolved. So 2 million sites, It started on Monday, November 8th. And okay, the issue was between Amazon Web Services and Google, and we traced it down to a network issue. Okay, so it was resolved within 4 days. Okay, so I'm not retracting everything that I said. I wasn't aware. So Brian, thank you actually for bringing it up. I take back my cavalier style. Okay, so Brian says it was a big deal, especially for those sites, and they resolved it. So I have 2 thoughts here. Number one, if you are concerned about this happening again at SiteGround, and you think, hey, they fucked up or something got messed up, and you think it might happen again, I encourage you to check other hosting companies. I will also tell you, because this just happened at SiteGround, I would say it is extremely unlikely for the same issue to happen again at SiteGround ever again, because they just had this major problem. So you can look at it in 2 ways. One is they made the mistake, so they could do it again. The other is they just made this huge mistake, and they're probably trying to figure out what to do so it never happens again. The other hosting company that I use called MDD Hosting, they had a situation where, like, I think almost all of their sites, all their everything was down for a few days. You have to think about what you're going to do in that situation. So for me, I had like 5 sites down, some of them pretty critical, and I have off-site backups away from my hosting company, so that if there's this actual server issue or some physical problem, I actually can restore it independent of my hosting company. That's really important to have. And it would be easy for me to actually just go to another web hosting company and move everything over. The reality is that is going to take me, a few hours of time. And because of the way the DNS servers and propagation of DNS name servers and all that stuff happens, there was a chance it was still going to take maybe 24 or 48 hours for everything to propagate properly and be done. And I knew there was a strong chance that the hosting company was going to be able to solve it faster than all that propagation. So my choices were move off MDD hosting because they made a mistake, or stay on MDD hosting. They're resolving it. It may take a little longer, but it would, I'm not going to have to do anything. So I actually stayed at MDD hosting. And the other thing I thought about was they're never going to have this issue again. It was sort of a confluence of multiple problems that all occurred at the same time. And then they're never going to do it again because they've just been embarrassed, and they were very transparent. MDD hosting was very transparent with exactly what was happening and the overall resolution. So that gave a lot of our the customers confidence, and a lot of people just said, yeah, that, like, we're going to stick it out, even though we could go somewhere else. It's probably going to be faster to just leave everything here, or just a moderate amount longer for the resolution. And the big thing is the convenience of not having to like move everything over. And when you move to a new hosting company, a lot of times your emails get out of not out of sync, but you have to reconfigure your mail servers and a number of other things. So if you do it all the time, not a huge deal. You probably have a checklist to go through it, but for most people, it's going to take a bit, and you're going to have to remember what to do. Okay. Okay, Brian says, all right, I don't need to move. That's the best case. And sorry, you didn't mean to hijack the live. Carry on. You'll be quiet. No, it's all good, because I do recommend, I recommend Siteground. I have a lot of sites over there, but I just had no clue that this was going on. And like I said, I don't pay attention to much of the news anyway, and I mean, even less for this sort of specific thing. And again, like, I don't check analytics very often, just occasionally to make sure there's no issue, but typically not on like a daily basis. So, all right. Jamie says, I want to start a site that covers tons of different topics, and I plan to write the content in large batches around each silo of content to help gain topical authority. Any tips or advice here? That sounds like a good plan, Jamie. Often I tell people to do exactly that. You know, if they want to go fairly broad, then you should focus fairly tightly. And if you're publishing in a silo sort of structure, or at least, clusters of content, you will have that topical relevancy. So that's good. I would potentially plan on it taking longer than you think, just to set your expectations maybe a little more realistically. It'll be great. I'm curious, do you have any examples of other sites doing that? And have you seen their trajectory? And maybe that can give you an idea on the timeline that you should look at too. And Get Jack says, you can confirm the SiteGround issue. You do SEO for a big real estate agent, and half the site got de-indexed. Is it all back to normal now? Is everything back to normal? And Jamie says, can that broad of a site still see success these days? Sure. I mean, I think anything's possible, but it just depends on the timeline and the amount of effort that you want to put into it. Typically, and I just heard from someone like in the last 24 hours, basically they were going like way too narrow. So I am not sure if the tons of different topics that you're talking about are, wildly unrelated. And if that's the case, I would potentially try to figure out how to group certain things. That'll probably make it a little bit easier, I suspect, and it'll help you rank a little faster. Oh, and Thane says, like and subscribe. Thanks. Yeah, I always forget to ask. I just answer questions, just helping people. Yeah, sign up for the email list, like the video, subscribe to the channel, all those things. And God says, do I still own or work on the first website I had early success on? No, I don't. Some of those early sites were totally, decimated and penalized. So I'm trying to think if any of them, because the earliest sites, like basically I was just following the niche site project #1 from Spencer Hawes, and there was a lot of gray hat link building. So most of the stuff I worked on early, it just went up in smoke, and that's just part of the story. So, all right. One thing I always forget. Well, not always forget. I got different cues in here, but basically, Ezoic, they sponsor these live streams. So shout out to Ezoic and their product Leap. It helps you get green in core web vitals, much like this very green shirt that I have here. So you get green in core web vitals, helps your site load faster. There's a lot of cool data associated with that. And it's free if you're monetizing with Ezoic. And the good news is they don't have a minimum page view. So you could join even if you have a brand new site, which is kind of cool. You can get integrated right away. So thanks a lot to Ezoic. And the other, which I can actually, the other sponsor is Otis Global. And I think I can share. Oh, there's just my face again. Let me share the other window. And Otis is where you can get aged domains. So where is that window? Boom. Get aged domains over here on Otis, and they have all sorts of different sites. We could just sort of randomly find one. You can search for your specific niche or anything specific that you're looking for. So let's say you're looking for an English language that is a .com, and you want to find, oh, you could even find some of the specific links, but let's look for something in the gardening niche, see if there's anything available here. So you can go, fairly narrow. So English.com in the gardening niche. Some of them are not going to be perfect, but it does give you a way to hop in. Of course, the advantage of building on an age domain is there's already some existing links. So that is very helpful, and potentially it sort of shortens the whole sandbox period. So like I said, some of these might not be perfect, but maybe you hop over to Rain Saucers here, which is listed for 1,910 US dollars. This one is, let me scroll down here, 2009, so it's 12 years old, and you can see some of the SEO metrics. The Moz is 29 and 28, and then we have Majestic. The citation and trust flow are 19 and 29. Usually you get a logo. Let's see. Yeah, you get this little logo included, and if you join using my affiliate link, you get $100 in there. So let's get back to the questions over here. All right. And Jamie says, do I host experimental sites if I have any on different hosting than my core sites? Not really. So a couple things. I generally don't have like experimental sites. No. And then the other is I have like separate hosting accounts for each one of my sites other than my podcast. So those are actually on the same hosting account. But I kind of segregate everything out and put it in its own silo just to keep things separated. So if a site does go down or a particular server, it is probably unusual for any of my other sites to be on the same one. So I don't know if that's helpful or if that's exactly what you're asking, but that's sort of the way that I do it. Guy says, would any of my early niches be viable to resurrect and develop in a more sustainable way? Yeah, most likely. I think a couple of them would probably be pretty good. And it's funny. I mean, a lot of times on these live streams, people will say, "Hey, is such and such niche good or bad?" And not every single one, of course, but many of them I at one point had a site in. Some of them I sold, some of them got penalized, some of them never took off, some of them did really well, and then maybe I sold it in a marketplace, or maybe I sold it directly to someone I know. But yeah, I mean, most of the niches that I choose are fairly universal, and people are still buying the products. The other portion, kind of funny, I was looking at video from earlier, I don't know, I think it was like a couple weeks ago. So I was looking at a video, and then one of my old live streams from like 2018 popped up, and I thought, oh man, I'm gonna watch that just for a second, just to see, what it looks like, how crappy the video was, or how I did on the live stream. And kind of interesting. It looked pretty good. I have realized the importance of lighting. I was just using, I think at the time, I was just using the little webcam on my MacBook Pro from circa 2014. And now I'm using a nicer camera just in general. But even if I switch over to, where do I switch cameras here? Even if I switch over to my webcam, because I have good lighting in here, it looks pretty good. I'm a little bit washed out, and you could tell it doesn't have the same depth of field here. But yeah, those old videos, they weren't bad. There were a lot of questions, but the reason why I'm bringing it up is someone asked a question in 2018, and pretty much gave the same answer that I give these days. And I think a couple years before that, I was giving the same answer. So it was, maybe should I have, how much informational content should I have versus affiliate content? Or what's your approach to link building? And a lot of a lot of the stuff, I have been so conservative the whole time, that the answers hold up for years. I don't even need to change what I'm saying. You literally could watch one of the videos from 2018. Sure, a couple of the things might change here and there, like how much I was paying a writer in 2018 versus now. It'll be a little more expensive now. But other other than that, a lot of it was, I mean, it would hold up okay, including some of the niches. Some of the niches would be perfectly viable and great. All right. Hafiz says how to skip the sandbox and how much time it takes for a new website to skip it. Well, I'm curious from the live audience here, what are your recommendations for skipping the sandbox? So, a couple things here. One, if there was like a reliable way to skip the sandbox that would work most of the time, then everyone would do it and everyone would be talking about it. The best way to skip the sandbox, and some of these answers are going to be a little bullshit, but true. So to skip the sandbox, like just buy a site that already has traffic that's over a year old. Then it's out of the sandbox. So as long as it takes you to find one of those sites is how long it's going to take. To truly skip the sandbox, there's not a specific reliable way that will always work. Again, otherwise everyone would do it. Or if there is a way, it would be a little bit more expensive. Otherwise everyone would do it and it would be abused. The sponsor of this, Otis, has age domains, so that can help a lot. And I have a podcast coming out in a couple weeks where I review the timeline for sites that started from scratch, either from an age domain or from a brand new domain with no history. And really, it's just looking at the timeline of traffic and growth for 5 different sites. And I could generally see that the age domains got a lot more traffic much faster. That's pretty reliable. Not always, it still takes a little bit, but depending on the strength of the domain, the relevancy of the links, and how competitive the niche is, sometimes it ramps up much, much faster. But you can't really know. And Jamie says, what niche was your first successful site in? So I can't mention that because there are a couple, pieces that eventually moved into sites that I sold in which I have an NDA for. And typically I don't talk about my specific sites. So that is the other thing. But it's some of the big ones, right? There's some that come up all the time. There's probably like 8 that are very common. It was one of those 8. All right. Hafez says, I want to start a new site. Should I go with an expired domain or a fresh one? You need suggestions. I would go with not an expired domain, but an age domain. You can get it from wherever you want, but I have a sponsor of the show. They pay me money. So I'll mention them. Otis, which I did 3 times, and thanks for the prompts to make it easy for me to push them. If you join using my affiliate link, you save $100. Brian says, if you have time, could you show me how you would approach keyword research regarding festivals? You own everything fest and you're looking to build pages around each festival. Don't know how to find the best keywords. So I usually don't do like specific keyword research for people unless it's the topic of the day, and then I maybe would have a look. But for something like that, Brian, I would most likely check out some of your competitors as a starting point, or that's what I would do because I have no clue about keywords for festivals. So I'd look at sites that have already done something or sites that are getting at least some of the same kind of traffic as what you want to get and go from there. So I usually can get some pretty good ideas after I take a look at some other sites. I mean, sure, you can do the traditional stuff where you like look at their keywords and filter and understand those exact keywords and go after those. But usually I'll get some pretty good ideas from it, and then I could jump off to different areas. All right. And God says you can't rush it. This is to Hafez. It'll be 6 or 8 months. You have to hang in there and keep adding content. You could skip it with an age domain. Age domain, maybe. And Hafez is persistent. He says, how to skip the sandbox. God damn it. He didn't say the goddamn it part, but I suspect that's what he would say. Are expired domains are sandbox free or not? It depends. And all right, let's keep going here. Okay, and Hafez, I listen to Gaz here. What you need to do is start your site, start publishing stuff, and then in 6 months or a year, then you'll be out of the sandbox. If you really want to skip it, you could buy an existing site. Just buy an existing site, and then it gets traffic, it's out of the sandbox, and that solves your problem. The overall thought is basically, if you want to take a shortcut, you got to pay some money, or you got to put in some other sort of capital or resources or something. There's no free ride. So a lot of the questions that you're asking are, you're like, how can I like I want to take a shortcut. How do I make this happen faster? You can make it happen faster, but it's going to cost you. So there's no free ride. No free ride. All right. So great example here, Jamie. Love it. You said you started a site in late March 2021 on an age domain. You're at 50,000 page views a month. Fantastic. And Jack says the Siteground issue that popped up before with indexing is back to normal, but you indexed a lot of URLs, which you hit the 24-hour quota a few times, but things are back to normal. Okay, so kind of a shitty few days, but things are all right. Good thing it was now and not during like the Black Friday week. Jamie really wants to know some of the niches, but like I said, NDA stuff, I can't talk about it. So sorry about that. I'm consistent with that. All right, guys says, I'm still sandbox with 35 articles 3 months in. MM says, if someone like me that hates link building with a passion, what's the easiest way to gain links? Not including Haro. I think my voice is starting to fade here. Shoot, I don't have any cough drops here or water. All right. I'm not sure what to do. We're going to figure it out though. Maybe we're just going to run it a little short today. Yeah, all of a sudden, I just got a tickle in my throat. Okay. So MM says, hello, you're from the UK. Great. All right. The easiest way to gain links. Gosh, the easiest way, I would think about having, I'm going to try to give some good ideas here. So number one, if you can network effectively, you might not get links very quickly, but you'll build those long-term relationships that could build into something. And the other is if you can produce some original data, or at least curate different statistics and analytics and stats in your niche that people would potentially want to link to. So that is probably a really good way, because if you're curating like from many different data sources that are great references, when you put that on your site, maybe have some custom graphics. Those are things that people might share on Twitter, where there are active bloggers, influencers on Twitter. So they may reference you. They may share it around because it's good data with those custom graphics. So that is, it's an easy way to get the links because you're putting together some original information. But I think the good part is it's not like normal link building where you're going around trying to send out a bunch of emails or something like that. It's more like you're putting together some really good data. All right. Joanne says, I started my blog with Elementor and then you moved over to Popcorn. Great. How do I change my post from Elementor to Gutenberg? That I don't know. I would check with Alex and the crew and the rest of the support team. That's the great part with premium themes. They'll support you, or they should. You do have 14 posts, you said. My hunch, Joanne, without ever using Elementor or Popcorn, and I don't use Gutenberg currently. So with that in mind, I'm one of the least qualified people to ask, but my hunch is it would be a brute force copy and paste. That's my guess. I don't think there's generally with these things, there's no fast way to do it. So the good part is you only have 14 posts to work with, but I have seen the popcorn theme. It looks fantastic. I think those guys are doing a good job with it. I haven't honestly, I've been a little busy / lazy, so I haven't checked out popcorn yet, although it has been on my list to review it, but it's one of those things. Lazy / busy. Can't do everything. I'm pumping out like 3 episodes of a podcast per week and then doing these live streams. So God says, do you think Google plays with a sandbox site while it's there and puts tests on it? If you're saying, or if you're asking, do I think they maybe like shoot it up and let it rank for some stuff to see how it reacts? I think so. I have seen, um, some sites, they get traffic sooner, and maybe, there's there's things that are going on, like maybe every site really has a chance to go through the sandbox faster, but they failed at test. Jamie says, are GoDaddy auctions worth messing with or stick to something like Otis? I think that if you enjoy the GoDaddy auctions and you are willing to put in the time, I think you could probably find some good deals. The converse of that is you might get into a bidding war if you're not patient and you get into the hype of, you know, the bidding going up and up and up. So I think you have to be careful, but I think you potentially, if you enjoy auctions, you potentially would be able to get a good deal. I would probably have an Otis account and then, keep looking for the thing that you're looking for. And for me, I don't like I don't like the auction stuff or like having to shop around too much. I love the convenience of going over to a marketplace, do a quick search, see if anything's available, and if not, just take a look every few days or whatever. Um, I don't enjoy the process of like hunting over and over again, and having to look at GoDaddy auctions all the time. So if I could just go walk up and buy it, that's going to win up for me every time. All right, quick favor: if you have the opportunity, I know some people are, hopefully you're not driving, but if you're able to hit the thumbs up and like the video, I appreciate it. All right, Jamie says, bless you, thank you. Khalid says, will it be a wise decision to buy an AI tool? So my my overall my overall thought is it depends on what you're using it for. So I did check with some friends because at this point I get some AI related question multiple times per stream. I played around with some of the AI tools and they weren't very good. Played around with a couple. I tried to use them sort of quickly on very short form content and it was not very good. I I I have heard they can do okay for certain types of content, or I think Gaz actually mentioned this a couple weeks ago, where if you really sculpt the content and you're a little more surgical about the input data, you can end up with some pretty good content. So from where I sit, I would say no, just hire a writer or write it yourself. This is another case of like shortcuts, right? Everyone wants to do it a little faster, a little easier, and you might be able to get like incremental gains, but like, some of the questions, when I place together the questions and I can understand and see the subtext of the priorities that people have, it's like, how could I do this cheaper and faster and easier? And that's what everyone wants. And you can't have all those things, especially when everyone else wants to do it. So imagine, right? If you're thinking, how can I skip the sandbox? How can I not do the writing and just not even have to deal with a fucking writer and not have to hire them or pay them? And I could just pay this AI tool company who I've got to be careful to not talk too much shit. I mean, I hope the tools get better. I never call any of them out specifically. But the whole punchline here is, let's say someone is writing the content themselves and actually putting more time in versus people that are trying to use the AI tools. Who do you think's going to win? I can't imagine the AI tool is going to win. So other people surely have other opinions, but I would say the human writer is going to crush the AI tool if they put the time in. Jamie says resource content is very linkable. Think the best resource in your niche. Great tip. All right. Guys says, I'm still going down the route of not forcing backlinks. If they come, they come. That's great. I'm not desperate, and my site is a hobby site, so other people may differ. Yeah, I think it's great to not force the backlinks. It does remove the it removes the non-fun portion of the link building, but I think again, my first recommendation is just build some relationships, get to meet some people in the niche overall, and just, make friends online or whatever. I opened this whole live stream talking about going to a conference and meeting people in person and like hanging out with them. And, there's no, that, that's hard to do online, but if there's a conference that you can go to, then that's a great way to do it. I was going to say there's a strong chance. I mean, I have a small podcast and a small following compared to a lot of the people that I met, but there's a good chance because I can hang out and party and drink that I made some good friends, and we'll probably be able to collaborate in some ways. And I mean, I am fortunate in that my YouTube channel is, fairly significant. Um, in the grand scheme of things, it is a very small one. But if someone met a couple people who are really well known bloggers, and they've been around blogging for like 10 or 15 years, but they have this individual I'm thinking of has a very small YouTube channel, and he wants to do more YouTube stuff, but he hasn't grown it along the way. So he's coming in and basically he just has a handful of subscribers, but again, he's really well known and in the community. And there's a good chance I'm going to have him on my podcast and on this channel, and it'll be kind of a great help for him. But the added thing, right? I love to help him. Great guy. Anyway, I would do it no matter what. But like now that I'm helping him out, like he potentially would help me out. And well, he's like I said, he's a famous dude, and like he could actually make some nice introductions for me. And I met like a handful of other people, again, like really in the personal finance area, but they're very famous people. It's kind of crazy. So that networking stuff is super important. Okay, Danish says, what's the best WordPress theme for better speed? Guys is giving a plug for the old popcorn theme, which is a good recommendation since we were talking about it before, since Joanne mentioned using popcorn as well. I don't have my affiliate link posted here, but I am an affiliate. I don't even know if I have a link anywhere for it, but um, I I like the Focus WordPress theme. And Jamie says, pretty sure you'll have to rebuild any pages you used building Elementor. Elementor is so slow and bulky, and I agree with that. Jamie does say you got 2 domains from Otis already. Wish they would have a make an offer feature. Some of the domains are overpriced and they're just sitting there. And Jamie says this business is the ultimate test of patience. And one quick note, let me just double check that I am allowed to mention this coming up, because I was emailing the owner over at Otis earlier today, and I just want to make sure that I could tell you all about a little secret, because I wasn't sure if it was public knowledge. Okay. All right, here's the deal. I am an affiliate for these folks. But this is on their blog, so I guess if it's here, then I could tell you about it. Their Black Friday offer is starting on November 22nd, so a couple days from now, and it goes all the way to December 3rd. And basically, you get cash back. And that's a pretty amazing deal. So I think you pay the full purchase price, but then you get cash back. And there's no limit. So if you buy like a $10,000 domain, you'll get 5,000 cash back, in which, you would be able to. I'm not sure how they're awarding that back, so you got to read the fine print and all that. In addition, they have for you affiliate sites, so pretty amazing stuff there. Basically, even if, the point being, Jamie, if you think some of this stuff's overpriced, they do have a deal coming up starting on the 22nd. Jamie also says, this business is the ultimate test of patience. Every now and then, the the little chat shows the wrong one. So, yes, it's so interesting. So, the SEO related business models like affiliate sites or sites that have informational content and you need SEO traffic, basically you do have to be patient. But imagine starting a brick and mortar business like a restaurant. Like, talk about also having to be patient, but you have so much capital that you have to put up front, or a brewery, right? So many times people are like, oh, you should open a brewery. But, well, number one, it's really hard work. Number two, you have to have so much money invested in equipment, and there's all the paperwork that you have to do. It takes a very long time to get the inspections. You have to submit your paperwork to the TTB, go through your state's, alcohol commission or whatever it is. They have to come in and inspect. And then you have to work with building inspectors. And then you're working with other, agencies out there. And it's just a line of bureaucracy. And if you mess up on one thing, on one form, you may have to wait like 3 months before you submit it again, which actually happened to like a friend of mine in Montana. So anyway, yeah, starting any business, it is, risky in certain ways. And there's usually, there's something tough about it. There's some patience you have to have. All right. As we scroll down, and Goss says, for the monthly price of Jarvis, you can outsource 4 articles per month. The more you use it, the more valuable it becomes. And Jarvis works. It can't plagiarize, but there's a checker just in case. So, yeah, like I said, I think the tools are getting better and better. I mean, from what I hear and, people talking about it, and I know Gaz has spent the time to understand how to use the tool properly so you get the results that you need. So, I mean, I could imagine in the wrong hands if someone's just trying to do the easiest thing and the fastest, and they don't, maybe they're not very good at grammar, and they don't know that things sound funny, especially reading it. They may not realize that that's a real, something's a poor way to phrase a certain sentence. They may end up with some kind of really terrible content. And Jamie says, so many traditional businesses fail in the first 2 years. Yeah, it's like a 70% fail rate. Yeah, so it's very, very tough. All right, I think I'm going to wrap it up here. Thanks, everyone, for hopping on. Please do hit the thumbs up if you haven't. Check out my podcast and the Mile High 5 if you're interested in the personal finance stuff. I have some very exciting episodes coming up. One of them is with Charlie, who I interviewed before. He published, I think it was like 435 articles in 5 months or some kind of crazy thing. Well, he did even more this year, and I haven't talked to him in several months. So we're getting sort of close to the end of the year update, and I'm going to release that episode. I believe it comes out on the 22nd as well. So that is next Monday. And I'm actually going to release a little teaser video. All right. A little teaser video beforehand. So I think most people are probably subscribed to this channel, but if not, you'll definitely want to subscribe and keep an eye out for Charlie's it's a teaser video. It's like a 9-minute video, separate interview where we just kind of like go through quick. I did one of those with Christy a couple weeks ago, and I see the value in some of the shorter form videos for YouTube. All right, Jamie says, my favorite content agency right now. Currently, I'm not currently testing anyone, nor do I have any sponsors. So I don't have any favorite ones. And Jamie does say, don't say niche website builders. They did used to sponsor these segments, but they do not anymore. So currently I don't have a specific favorite, and I am not testing anyone right now. So I don't have anyone to mention here. If someone has a content agency and they want to sponsor me, well, maybe you could be my new favorite one. But and to be fair, Niche Website Builders did a nice job when I was working with them. So they did a fine job, and they have a good system. They have good project managers to work with. They adjusted whenever I asked them to, so they did a good job. All right, Jamie, thanks for hopping on, and Gaz and Joanne, the other crew, everyone that asked questions. Danish, what's up? So yeah, everyone have a good